Everyone has a breaking point. For Yudoka Kaiba, he didn't want wealth, power, or fame. He just wanted a completely ordinary high school life. To laugh with friends, to fall in love, just regular, everyday happiness. But life didn't care about what Yudoka wanted. Instead, it systematically broke him down over 4 brutal days. On Monday, a gang of bullies led by a guy named Ryoya cornered him behind the gym and beat him to a pulp. On Tuesday, they took it a step further, dragging him into the restroom stalls and dumping toilet water all over his head. By Wednesday, things turned irreversible. A highly private, humiliating nude photo of Yudoka was leaked directly to the class group chat, exposing his vulnerability to everyone he knew. By Thursday, the psychological weight was too much to bear. Yudoka sat alone in the dark, meticulously. Yudoka is standing on the freezing, rain-drenched edge of the school rooftop. The drop below looks terrifying, but the thought of facing another Monday is worse. He hesitates. He trembles. Suddenly, out of the pouring rain, a figure appears. Her name is Kubaru, or just Kubaru for short. She's striking, perfectly calm in the storm, and carries herself with a strange, hypnotic authority. She steps up to him and makes a chilling declaration. She claims to be a devil, and she's here to offer him a deal. The terms are simple. She will grant him absolute happiness, ultimate protection, and everything his heart desires. But the price? Total autonomy. He must surrender his entire life to her and become her completely obedient puppet. Yudoka can barely process what he's hearing. He hesitates, wondering if he's finally lost his mind. But Kubaru doesn't wait for an answer. With a wild smile, she grabs his collar and leaps straight off the edge of the building, dragging them both down into the empty air. Against all laws of physics, they survive the plunge, breaking their fall on a heavy canvas awning. Kubaru's left arm snaps with a sickening crunch, but she doesn't even cry out. Instead, she smiles through the pain and seals their pact with a sudden, forceful kiss. The next day, Yudoka is resting in a hospital bed, his own arm heavily bandaged. He asks her the obvious question, why? Why would a wealthy girl like her, the daughter of the billionaire CEO of Kubaru Real Estate, do something so insane? Kubaru looks at him with completely hollow eyes and confesses, I am utterly bored of my own existence. Rather than ending my life, I decided it would be much more thrilling to take absolute control of someone else's and build a perfect one for them. She then asks for his very first wish. Yudoka looks at his bandages, his eyes turning cold. Revenge, he whispers. Make the bullies pay. The moment Yudoka sets foot back in school, the torment resumes. Ryoya and his gang corner him, laughing as they pull out black markers to deface his medical bandages. When Yudoka pushes them away, Ryoya delivers a brutal dropkick that sends him crashing to the floor. But just as Ryoya raises his fist to strike again, the classroom door slides open. Kubaru steps in, followed by a visibly terrified homeroom teacher who had been instructed to stay hidden until the perfect moment. Kubaru is introduced as a wealthy new transfer student. Captivated by her status and looks, Ryoya immediately tries to smooth things over, smoothly asking for her contact ID so he can add her to the class group chat. Kubaru plays along seamlessly, taking her seat right next to Yudoka. But at lunchtime, the real trap snaps shut. Kubaru shows Yudoka her phone. Ryoya had already uploaded the humiliating private video of him to the group chat to show off and turn her against him. Kubaru realizes Ryoya is desperate for her attention. So, she looks at Yudoka with a mischievous glint in her eyes and proposes a chaotic plan. Let's publish this video to the entire world ourselves. Yudoka panics. Sharing his own deepest humiliation sounds completely insane. But Kubaru is unbothered. She forces his thumb onto the submit button of a draft she personally prepared. Except, she didn't just upload the video, she framed it to look like the bullies themselves had posted it. adding arrogant, disgusting captions boasting about their cruelty. Within minutes, the internet explodes with public outrage. Down in a secluded corner of the school courtyard, Ryoya is casually smoking a cigarette when his friend runs up, pale as a ghost, begging him to check his phone. The entire internet has localized their school, their names, and their addresses. Before Ryoya can even dismiss it as online noise, a massive, imposing stranger steps out of the shadows, pointing a smartphone camera stabilizer directly at his face. It's the notorious vigilante live streamer, Bakibo, broadcasting live to millions on his infamous channel, Bakabaki Violence. Bakibo slaps a branded wristband onto Ryoya, claiming it's a consensual collaboration. When Ryoya frantically tries to push the camera away, his hand slips and accidentally grazes Bakibo's cheek. That's all the excuse the streamer needs. Feigning absolute horror for his live audience, Bakibo shouts that the vicious bully is assaulting him. He turns Ryoya into a literal punching bag, masking the brutal beating as stunt acting for the viewers. Through a broken nose and heavy swelling, Ryoya falls to the ground, looking up at the sky. In his final moments of consciousness, he remembers how this all started, how it failed. Embarrassing attempt to be friends with Yudoka on the very first day of school had slowly curdled into a monstrous cycle of hatred. By the afternoon, the teacher announces Ryoya has been hospitalized and the trespasser arrested. School is dismissed early. For the first time in months, Yudoka feels a wave of pure relief. The bullying is over. But his nightmare is just beginning. To celebrate, Kubaru orders Yudoka to skip school the next day for a date. He arrives nervously in his school uniform, but she forces him to change into casual clothes in a nearby restroom. While waiting, a couple of street thugs try to hit on her. But Kubaru completely ignores them, treating them like literal ghosts. Her emotional detachment is chilling. Over lunch, Yudoka finally builds up the courage to ask if she's doing all this because she actually has feelings for him. Kubaru's expression instantly drops into a cold, clinical stare. "Do not mistake your position," she tells him. "You are a puppet. I have zero romantic interest in you. This date is nothing more than an introductory class, a practice run, so you can learn how to be a gentleman for whoever you actually fall in love with in the future." That evening, Yudoka's phone rings. It's his tyrannical, abusive father, screaming through the receiver because the school reported his absence. The conversation ends with his father snarling a horrific phrase, "I hope you die on the side of the road." Seeing the sheer hurt in Yudoka's eyes, Kubaru offers an immediate escape. "Come live with me." You don't have to tolerate a monster just because you share his blood. When Yudoka hesitates, pointing out that she doesn't even like him, she drops an undeniable piece of logic. "Precisely because I don't love you, my guidance is completely objective. I have no ulterior motives. I am here to save you." And in that exact moment, Yudoka realizes something terrifying. He has fallen completely, hopelessly in love with his puppeteer. They pack his things and move into her luxury high-rise apartment. But their peace is shattered when Yudoka's father tracks his location using a hidden GPS app and storms into the building's lobby, screaming obscenities and accusing Kubaru of seducing his son. Instead of arguing, Kubaru calmly steps forward and hands the furious man a thick envelope. Inside is 1 million yen in cash, meant for emergencies. She offers him a simple choice: take the money and leave Yudoka with her, or refuse. The father laughs it off, insulting her and calling it dirty money. That's when Kubaru pulls out her phone, dials a number, and says a cheerful, "Love you, Dad," a single minute later. The father's phone rings. It's his boss. Without an explanation, his boss regretfully informs him that he is being summarily fired to protect the company. The father stares at Kubaru in absolute horror as the pieces click together. Her father is the CEO of Kubaru Real Estate, the parent company that owns his entire workplace. Faced with instant financial ruin or the cash, The father's pride completely crumbles. He takes the envelope, dropping to the floor in defeat. Yudoka watches from the stairs, realizing the terrifying absolute power of the girl who now owns his life. But things take an even weirder turn when Kubaru's adoptive father, Tamata, unexpectedly tracks her down. Discovering that a teenage boy is living under the same roof as his precious daughter, Tamata's protective instincts flare up. He forces Yudoka into his car for a private chat, slamming his foot on the gas pedal and speeding toward a dangerous cliffside curve. He demands to know the truth. Are they sleeping together? Yudoka frantically denies it, screaming for him to watch the road, but he admits they've kissed. In a blind panic, Tamata loses control. The car barrels straight off the edge of the cliff, launching into the empty air. As them plummet, time slows down for Tamata. He flashes back to the day he first met a young Kubaru. He was hired by her biological father to watch over her. She was a deeply lonely child, forced to maintain perfect academic grades, routinely abused and struck with a heavy shoehorn by her biological father whenever she made a mistake, when her abusive father eventually passed away from cancer. A young Kubaru looked up at Tamata at the funeral and asked him a simple question: "Will you be my dad?" From that day on, Tamata swore to protect her happiness, no matter what. The car crashes violently into a massive tree hanging over the canyon. Tamata is knocked unconscious, blood dripping from his head. Despite his own injuries, Yudoka frantically cuts his seatbelt, hoists the heavy man onto his back, and meticulously climbs down the dangerous branches to safety. When Tamata wakes up, he realizes Yudoka didn't hesitate to risk his own life to save him, simply because he knew Kubaru would be sad if her father died. Seeing Yudoka's true character, Tamata finally relents, giving them his reluctant permission to live together on the strict condition that they stay responsible. Back at the apartment, Kubaru decides it's time for the next phase of her experiment. Since Yudoka needs real romantic experience, she decides to direct his very own romantic comedy. Their target is a painfully shy, sweet classmate named Ihara Ryo, who is struggling to reach the top of the blackboard. Following Kubaru's strict earpiece instructions, Yudoka steps in, cleans the board, and flashes a gentle smile. Ryo's face turns bright red. Later that day, she nervously asks him to walk her home to try a new donut shop. The entire date is a covert operation. Kubaru feeds Yudoka smooth lines through a hidden earbud. He offers to split the limited edition donuts. He pays for her meal. Ryo is completely smitten until the mask slips. Ryo leans across the table, her voice dropping an octave as she murmurs, "If you actually liked someone else, I might have had to get rid of you." Yudoka freezes in absolute terror. Though she quickly laughs it off as a joke, she spots the flashing blue light of the earbud in his ear. Realizing his entire kindness was a manipulated script, tears fill her eyes. Panicking, Yudoka tears the earbud out, cutting off Kubaru completely, and frantically validates her feelings on his own terms. Desperate for connection, Ryo clings to him and invites him back to her apartment. But the moment Yudoka steps inside her living room, Ryo approaches him from behind and smashes a heavy glass jug directly over his skull. Yudoka wakes up bound hand and foot to a bed. Ryo stands over him, stripped down to her underwear. She calmly explains she took her clothes off so his blood wouldn't stain them. She reveals a terrifying psychological truth: she is not Ryo. Her name is Rina, a ruthless, protective, alternate personality born during childhood when Ryo's parents locked her in a pitch-black, freezing storage shed. Rina exists solely to absorb the trauma and eliminate anyone who toys with Ryo's heart. She raises the massive knife over Yudoka's face. The door swings open. Kubaru steps into the room, completely unfazed by the knife or the bindings. Rina lunges at her in a feral rage, but Kubaru utilizes flawless martial defenses, disarming her in a single swift motion and slapping her back into reality. Instead of calling the police, Kubaru wraps her jacket around the shivering girl and delivers an entirely bizarre, hypnotic proposition. Why choose blood when you can choose happiness? Come with us. I am building a perfect world for Yudoka, and I can build one for you and Rio too. Become my puppet, and no one will ever hurt you again. Overwhelmed by Kubaru's absolute, god-like confidence, the fracture in Rio's mind surrenders completely. To seal the Dark Alliance, Rio takes control of the body and plants a deep kiss on a stunned Yudoka. The game has officially expanded. Kubaru now has 2 puppets under her absolute control. If you want to see what happens when the puppet master becomes the target, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and comment down below what you think Kubaru's next move is. See you in the next recap.